The year was 1770. The place was a small Italian church where two altar boys were preparing for benediction. Their names were Annibale della Genga and Francesco Castiglione. The two boys entered the sacristy, put on their albs, and they grabbed the heavy brass candlesticks. Standing in the back of the church waiting for the procession to begin, the two boys began to bicker and argue over who would stand on the priest's right for the procession. The bickering escalated into a shouting match. Alarmed parishioners turned their heads to the back of the church to see the commotion, and then that is when it happened. Castiglione cracked Della Genga over the head with his candlestick. Blood dripped from Della Genga's injury, and both boys began shoving each other. And the shocked parishioners in the church started screaming, "Throw them out, throw them out." So the embarrassed priest grabbed the boys, led them to the door, and he tossed them out of the church. Fast forward now 55 years later to the year 1825. Where 500,000 people have gathered in Rome for the great Jubilee celebration, which occurs every 25 years. Its grand climax is the opening of the holy doors at St. Peter's Basilica. Traditionally, the Pope knocks on the door 3 times with a large silver hammer and sings, "Open unto me the gates of justice." In front of thousands of people, Della Genga, now known as Pope Leo XII, made his way to the holy door. And turning to the cardinal beside him, Cardinal Castiglione, the Pope said, "Let me have the hammer." And with a sly grin, Castiglione replied, "Just like I gave you the candlestick." 4 years later, Cardinal Castiglione would succeed his friend and become Pope Pius VIII. Now, I'm sure if you told any of those parishioners sitting in that church back in 1770 that those two boys who were hitting each other with candlesticks would end up becoming popes, they would laugh us out of the church. But today's gospel story gives us the good news that God can change even weeds into wheat. And that is the main message of the first reading that sets the theme for the day. It reminds us that our God is a God of patience and a God of mercy. That he will first act with patience and mercy, and then at some point he will act with his justice, as Jesus describes in that parable. And the reason that God acts with patience and mercy first with his people, as Jesus puts it in that parable between the weeds and the wheat, the reason is so that conversion can happen amongst us sinners. God gives us the patience and the mercy so that we can turn away from sin, so that we can be redeemed. If he were to act with justice with every sin that we would commit, I guarantee you right now, I would not standing here before you. And thank God he doesn't. Thank God he acts with mercy and patience first. He allows us to grow in the gifts of faith, hope, and charity. And in that last parable he offers about the yeast, that's what he is talking about. He's talking about the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity, that as they grow in our minds and our hearts, that's where true conversion begins and starts to take place. And just like a mustard seed that grows into this big, huge bush, so too those seeds of faith, hope, and charity that were planted us a time ago have grown over the days. We can look back in our own lives and see how our faith has increased, to see how God has increased our hope and how he's increased the gift of love within us. The interesting thing about the mustard seed is that during the time of Jesus, the mustard bush was considered an annoying plant. It was like a weed. No one liked it because it gave birds, which bring all the stuff that birds bring. And they found it annoying. And so there was this joke going around, how could something be so small in its beginning and grow to be such a big annoyance? And that's why Jesus uses that humor. And that point in time, he's teaching us not to look at the bad in others, but to see the good, because that's what God does for us. That's how conversion also can take place, when we look at others and we see the good that exists within them. This gospel story, these parables today, offer us the opportunity to reflect on how patient God is with us and the gift of his mercy, and how that gift of patience and mercy has changed and formed us into who we are. It also affords us the opportunity for us to pray that we may grow and to imitate our God in being patient and merciful with others. And it certainly gives us the opportunity to pray that the graces of faith, hope, and charity may continue to grow and increase in our hearts and minds. And today we are also given the opportunity to pray for the conversion of all sinners, that the seeds of faith, hope, and charity may be planted in each human being so that they may know truly the goodness of our God, the gift of his love, and the gift of his mercy.